Yeah, come in. Hi, thanks for coming in today. Did you find your way here okay?
I got a bit lost, but luckily I left a bit early.
That's good. Would you like any water?
Sure, thanks.
All right, here you go. I just happen to have a bottle of water for you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, like I said, thanks for coming in. Let's start by talking a little bit about yourself, if you would.
So my name is Ian Slowey, and I just recently graduated from South High School, and I'm interested in becoming a biological scientist with the goal to advance technology and sustainability in our society, and hopefully this job can get me one step closer to that goal.
All right. Your resume here says that you had a previous job. If you could tell me about it, that'd be great. What did you do to learn the ropes at that job?
So, my previous job was at Crazy Bowls and Wraps, and it was also my first. So I was put in very quickly, probably because of the lack of workers. So I didn't even have an interview to get in. So I was put into a role I didn't know about at all. So I had to quickly learn. So what I did for 30 minutes when I first got there was to shadow everyone else to see what was going on, specifically with the cashiers, because that's the job I was taking. And I was taking mental note of patterns and details, especially like in mannerisms and tone of voice, especially when dealing with customers. And also, after I'd done that, I was actually starting to do stuff myself, especially being a cashier. And I started asking about other jobs as well, like preparing sauces or cleaning up the workspace. And eventually, thanks to asking my coworkers questions and them being cooperative, and me being cooperative back to them, we were able to, get prepared really quickly, especially just like in 3 days.
Yeah, well, that's great. So it seems like you got used to it pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Was it hard after that? If it was, can you give me an example like of a time when you didn't necessarily meet a client's expectations? If that did happen, what happened and how did you rectify it?
It definitely was hard after the fact. It was still getting used to everything, even though I learned the ropes in 3 days. So, for example, about a month after I was employed, a person was really mad about their order for having extra payment because they used grilled chicken in all of their meals, which is something that we just do. Grilled chicken's harder to cook, but they didn't know about that, so they were mad. And since I was relatively new, I didn't know really how to de-escalate the situation, especially because they were really mad, and it was hard to get them from that state. And eventually, they threatened to drive off with the food without paying, and it was a big order, so I couldn't let that happen, so I'd eventually go get the manager to deal with her. But after that, I felt bad because, I didn't meet the client's expectations, so I, from then on, started taking mental notes of how to de-escalate, especially doing other things like looking online to see how to do it, like how you're supposed to behave and stuff. And along with that, I also practiced on other people who weren't so happy with their order, but usually not that unhappy. And eventually, over time, I was actually able to get really good at it. In fact, she kept on coming back, and I was able to de-escalate some of the other moments where she wasn't happy with their order. And another important thing, too, is just to make sure that they know what they're ordering and the consequences for what they're ordering, too.
That's great. So then as you grew, did you have any chances to use that skill in other areas? Like perhaps an example of a time where you were able to successfully persuade someone to see things your way at work?
Yeah, so a little later, I already talked about it, that we do like sauces for cashiers, we do sauce prepping. And so first things first is that we have a freezer that's not that big, and we put sauces in little cups and put those cups into bigger Tupperwares that go into the freezer, and they take up a lot of space. So what most coworkers usually do is that they just put the sauce into the cups and throw all the cups into the Tupperwares unorganized, and just put them in the fridge. The issue with that is that it takes up more space with less amount of cups, and also just breaks sometimes, so we have to clean out the inside of the Tupperware and all the cups individually. And also it's a waste of sauce, which is hard to create at the same time. So obviously that wasn't good. But the other issue is that you couldn't stack the cups into the Tupperwares either because it was perfectly the right size where you couldn't do that. So I actually started experimenting where you would put segmented stacks of cups one after the other. And eventually, someone asked me what I was doing, and I was actually able to persuade them to follow my way of thinking by first showing them the amount of space that just dumping it in takes, and also point out the fact how often we have to clean out the Tupperwares because of that, and then showing them that even when I juggle around the Tupperware, none of the things break, even with the segmented stacking, to show that it was tight, neat, and also that an entire quart of sauce would only take up 1/2 of the Tupperware, while usually by dumping it in, it would take up 2 Tupperwares.
That's great. So it seems like you got used to having that job at a certain point. At any moment, did you have to manage like numerous responsibilities at the same time? If so, how did you handle that?
So yeah, I definitely did. But this example I'm going to give is not really about the workplace I was at, but rather for school. So sometime in October, the Spirit of 76 marching band, which I was a part of, had to do a rehearsal, and not just that, but also performing for people at the St. Louis Dome. So that was going to take up a few days of the week, and because of that, I had to not only stack the work I was getting from my multiple AP classes at the time, but also do work that was in the future this as well, and balance marching band, and also I was balancing a college application as well. So doing all that together, it was really hard. But with efficiency and commitment, it was really easy. So by commitment, I mean like you don't get distracted by other things. Like, I'm bored now, I'm just gonna go play video games. No, but instead, I would stay focused and stay true to my goal, really. And for efficiency, what I did is that I had segmented parts of time, and for each segment, I only had that much time allotted for one specific assignment. And if I didn't finish it in that assignment, too bad, I had to move on to the next thing. So it created a sort of deadline, which further made me want to finish the assignments, especially quickly at the same time.
Gotcha. So you said you're a part of a marching band. Is there, by chance, any example of a time you faced maybe a conflict while working with a band? And if so, how did you handle that?
So about in my later halves of the marching band, I was a chair section leader for the trumpets, but someone who was a new marching band person was really good at the trumpet, better than I was, but they did not know much about marching band or about leading. So they try to keep on taking over my position unofficially by getting people to follow their orders rather than mine. But what I did was at first be calm and collected, because if you start being angry at them, especially openly, that'll start to look bad because it looks like you're the leader that just doesn't like their group, and no one was that. And also, I tried pushing the group to go further and grow more as a family rather than just a hierarchical, group. So it was really important to do that, and over time I'd also practice on my own to become better at the trumpet, better than them, and eventually in the last half of my senior year marching band, that person announced that they were actually happy with me being the section leader now and were willing to follow me. So in the end, it all worked out.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like you had a lot of autonomy to operate with marching band. Can you tell me about a time when you worked under extremely loose supervision? How'd you handle that?
So there wasn't a lot of extremely loose supervision in the marching band, but there was extremely loose supervision in my AP biology class. So we'd have a lot more autonomy in our experiments, more so than other classes. And one moment that I can distinctly remember was our first experiment, where our teacher was like, okay, go at it, do whatever you want. And a lot of students were left kind of confused because they didn't know what to do, but me and my partner decided to take the initiative and go at it immediately. We decided to do an experiment about testing the evolution of scent glands and seeing if chemical receptors on insects were able to pick up scents like scent glands could, even if it was at a not as improved rate. And eventually we kept on staggering our roles and swapping roles at the same time. And overall, just ordering it in kind of like an assembly line process, making the whole process streamlined. And in the end, we were able to get all of our lab done in one day and all of it presented on the next day. And because of that, we were the only group that got 100% of the project.
Oh, wow. So you just talked about initiative a little bit there. Describe to me a time when you saw some problem and took initiative to correct it rather than waiting for someone else to do it.
So A good example of this is during the height of COVID, during the lockdown, where everyone was doing at-home schooling. I heard that a lot of people were having a hard time, especially emotionally, during that. And one of the main issues were that they were missing everyone, but COVID stopped us from being in person. So what I did is that I took the initiative and created a whole entire plan about how we were going to do the scheduling for in person. So I devised it was going to be in quarters and in block scheduling, but every other day would be a new group, a red group and a blue group. So that would mitigate spread if that ever happened. And what occurred from there was actually an experiment at some point in November after I submitted to the principal. Of course, it had some alterations, but that was the idea behind it, was that it was going to be adjusted and manufactured into what would be the final product. And after about 2 weeks, it was a failed experiment because we didn't have enough teachers filling the roles, and especially for the substitute teachers. However, from that failed experiment, the principals went on and evolved into the second semester for when we'd actually be in person for the rest of the school year. So from there, the experiment may have failed, but the principles grew on.
Oh, that's great. So you say a lot of people had issues during lockdown last year. Did your family have any issues in particular?
I'm pretty sure I can't answer that because it's a bit too personal. Is there anything else you can give on the subject?
Oh, sure, of course. Sorry. How about a time you needed to get information from someone who wasn't very responsive? What would you do in that situation? What did you do?
Oh, so in that situation, so also during the lockdown, it was really hard to get a hold of some teachers, especially some question-prone teachers, like math teachers, for example.
Sure.
So it was really hard to, say, get an explanation as to what they exactly wanted on, say, a vague problem. So eventually I devised a sort of process of thinking for when going at a vague problem. So first, what is the teacher's personality? 2, what does the teacher want us to learn in the long run? And 3, what did we just learn in class or that week? And putting those 3 together, I could reasonably make an educational decision on what was supposed to be the correct answer for that situation. And from there, I was able to ask a lot less questions, but still get them correct.
No, that's great. And I think that about does it. Thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. So yeah, we're going to be looking into, we got some other applicants, but we should have something back to you pretty soon. Again, thank you for coming in and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is that time going to be soon at Acorn?
Well, we'll see. I got to do work through some stuff, but we'll be in touch.
All right, I'll see. If you need my phone number, it's on the resume. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.